What is the most essential way to abandon the five hindrances?
Important way to abandon the five hindrances.
Correct.
There is no one way. Each hindrance has to be abandoned separately. Now, to abandon the first hindrance, which is the desire for sensual pleasures, you have to practice what is called the Asubha Bhavana or the Asubha Nimitta. That Nimitta means a mental image, and Asubha Nimitta is a repulsive mental image, which is not a pleasant. That is why you have to practice the meditation on the 32 parts of the body. That is the Asubha Bhavana. That is to overcome the desire for sensual pleasure. Now, out of these desires for sensual pleasure, the most difficult one to overcome is the sexual desire. Because the sexual desire starts with a sexual hormone that gets into the blood, and it is that is responsible for this. But the hormone is produced only according to the way you interpret what you saw. So you can interpret what you saw or heard or smelt or tasted or touched. So it is from this sensory experiences that the interpretation begins. And then the interpretation leads to the hormone being activated. So that is how the emotion is aroused. So if you begin to look at the body, it is really this sexual thing starts when you are a baby. As a baby, you begin to experience the sight, the smell, the sound, and all those things of the mother. And the mother is seen as the body. It's the body of the mother. And it is that begins the sexual thing. But at the beginning it doesn't come as sexual, it is just coming as sensual. But later, as the body begins to grow, the sensual begins to become sexual. That is how it happens. So, but it is mainly the attraction to the body. And so, instead of looking at the external part of the body, like the skin or the shape of the body, you begin to look at the internal part of the body, what is inside the body, as if you have taken the skin off and you are looking at what is going on inside. That is the meditation. and you begin to think and reflect on the organs inside the body, and the organs are not so attractive. And so that desire for the body disappears. That is how you get rid of that sexual desire. So, then the hormone is not activated. So, in the same way, when you are troubled with anger or hatred, then you practice the metta meditation. May all beings be well and happy. Now that is how each of the hindrances you have to practice that opposite image. That is how you overcome the hindrances. You can't just overcome the hindrances by looking at the breath or concentrating on the breath. That is all nonsense. You see, meditation is not concentrating on the breath. You have to practice different kinds of meditation, especially 5 kinds of meditation, because there are 5 hindrances. For the 5 hindrances, you have to practice 5 kinds of meditation. That is why in that book where I gave you look at that. If you read that book, you get everything in that book.
Can meditation help heal your body, make it healthier?
What do you mean by healing the body? To overcome diseases? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, any problem with your body.
Any problem cannot be cured that way. Because body, when it is sick, it is not the same sickness. There are different sicknesses. Like the different hindrances, there are the different sicknesses. And each sickness has to be cured through the proper treatment for that specific sickness. You can't have what in Sinhalese we call the kokata taile. You can't have just one treatment for everything. If you study medicine, you will know that. You can't have one treatment for everything. You know, the very interesting thing, I think I have to tell you this. These Buddhists, not only in Sri Lanka, even in Burma, Thailand, and other Buddhist countries, they have heard in the sutras. Now a certain monk was sick, and so the Buddha says, what the Buddha does is, he reminds the monk of his meditation. Understand? If he was practicing some kind of meditation, the Buddha reminds that meditation, and the sickness is cured. Now, this is very important to understand that. Now, there is this well-known sutra called the Bojjhanga Sutra. And this Bojjhanga Sutra is not a recitation. It is a direct conversation where an arahant, you know who an arahant is? An arahant is a person who has practiced and finished the practice and attained the awakening. And an arahant, to attain that awakening, must practice the bojjhangas. There are 7 bojjhangas. Bojjhanga is today translated as
Factor of enlightenment?
limbs of
Factors of enlightenment.
huh?
7 factors of
7 factors of enlightenment. But those are not 7 factors. These are 7 steps in the process of awakening, not even enlightenment. That is wrong. Awakening. 7 steps in the process of awakening. So every arahant has to go through those 7 steps. So this is simply the 7 steps that every arahant goes through. You understand? And now when the arahant is sick, the mind is not very powerful because the body is not powerful. The mind is also not powerful. But the Buddha reminds the arahant of the meditation he did, which is the steps in the process of awakening. When that happens, the mind becomes powerful. And when the mind becomes powerful, it can deal with the sickness. That is the power of the mind over the body. Did you understand that? But today, when someone is sick, the monks go and chant that sutra and imagine that that person will be cured. So they are thinking that this sutra has some magical power to cure sickness. But no one really gets cured. They just chant it, that's all. But there is a possibility that a certain amount of help can be got from that. That is through what is called hypnosis. Hypnosis means that if you hold in your mind, my sickness is getting cured, you have to keep on thinking, my sickness is getting cured, my sickness is getting cured, my sickness is getting cured. Keep on repeating that. That can cure the sickness. That is, the thought can affect the body. And you have also to imagine in your mind, you are getting cured. You are getting cured. That imagination is very important here, the mental image. And that is the power that people use in hypnosis. Hypnosis is a state of passivity. The mind becomes passive, like the mind of a baby. The baby is passive. Whatever the mother says, or the baby will just accept it. So in that way, you are put into a mind of the baby, where your mind becomes passive. And when the mind has been put into that passive state, now you can put your idea into it. You are getting cured. You are getting cured. And you keep repeating that, you can get cured. That is how hypnosis works. Now, when these Buddhists go and listen to the chanting, the monks keep on chanting this spirit. As you listen, you are listening with a belief that this is going to help you. And as you listen to this, you get into a passive state. The mind enters a passive state. And when the mind enters the passive state, and you hold on to the belief that this is going to cure you, can get cured. That is hypnosis. You understand? Yeah?
Has hypnosis been practiced by many people from around the world?
What's that?
Has hypnosis been practiced by many people across the world and for many times? Or for many years? Because like the Christians, for example, they pray and sometimes they say...
Yeah, that also produces the hypnotic state. So most religions and all kinds of worships and rituals and things like that, all those things have a hypnotic effect, according to the believer. That can have an effect. But other than that, there is no magical powers. But if you believe in the magical powers, it can. You see, when I was in Malaysia, there was a girl who was brought by the parents. Now in Malaysia, whenever these girls they believe that a devil has entered the girl or something like that. It is with that belief they bring the girl to the temple, and what the monks do is they just chant the spirit. And they believe that when the monks chant, it has some power and the devil goes away. But in actual fact, there is no devil here. The fact is there is no devil. But they believe that there is a devil. You understand? So if they believe, if you go and tell them oh, don't believe in this devil, there is not true and all that, they won't accept it. They won't accept it. Now if I say, okay, I am very powerful, I can chase that devil away, then they believe that. You see, they think the monks have powers. So if you say, yeah, I only have to just put my hand over your head and the devil will go away. The devil goes. It's very simple. So if they believe in certain things, then you can use that belief to get rid of the devil. You know, what I was going to say was, a certain girl was brought by the father and mother, both came, and somehow the monks chanted spirits, but it didn't work. This girl had shivering like this. The girl is shivering. So someone told them they should bring the girl to me. So they brought the girl to me. I said, now I am not only a monk, but I am also, I know the secret behind this whole thing. So I said, okay, come. So I took her into a room where there were tables like this. So I put her on the table. Without her knowledge, she entered the hypnotic state. She didn't know that I put her into the hypnotic state. I just said, relax, just relax the body. So when she relaxed, she got into that passive state, you see. So once she's in the passive state, it's only a matter of saying, all your sickness disappears. And all the problems are gone. And the shivering stopped. So I took her to the parents and said, now the problem is gone. If there is anything more, you should bring back again. They never brought the girl back again. I suppose it was all finished. That's how it works. Those days, before I became a monk, I was working in a hospital, and then also they bring girls with this same problem. A lot of girls having these problems. That is, so one day they brought a girl. They said this girl was just lying on the bed and for about a week, lying on the bed for a week. And they did all kinds of magical ceremonies. She was not cured. So I said, okay, now the parents have to go away. Only the girl. I am dealing with the girl. There can be a nurse or someone like that. And so the girl was there. I have a small trick. There is a certain thing I just hold on to the nose. She can't be sleeping when I hold that to the nose. And she wakes up. Once she wakes up, I said, huh?
She's awakened?
What's that?
For the smell, yeah.
It's a medicine, yeah. So when she wakes up, I said, okay, now you are okay now. Your sickness is gone, finished. And I give her something to drink. And just some water or some other thing to drink. And then, now you are cured, you just come out of the bed and stand. So she stands. And then I said, now sit here. She sits. And I talk to her. And those parents are surprised how I managed to wake her up, because she was sleeping for 1 week or maybe 2 weeks. And they couldn't do anything, and all the magic they have performed didn't work. So here I just wake up, and in minute or two I have taken her out. So one day the mother had come. And she wants to know what really has happened to the girl, what was the sickness. I said, you can't understand these things. If I explain, she might get it back. But the thing is, she has some problems. The problem is that she is in love with someone. And the parents are not allowing her to meet this boyfriend or something. Those in Sri Lanka, the custom is different, you see. Now here, of course, the boy can come and take the girl out and do whatever they want and come back, you see. But that is not allowed in Sri Lanka. So this mother says, no, my daughter is very good. We don't even allow her to go alone to school, and someone always takes her to school. I said, that is the problem. That is what is happening to her. And so that is how you get this problem. So I couldn't explain these things, and they can't understand these things. So somehow they were happy that the problem was finished. So I said, if there is any other thing happening, you just bring her again. But after that they didn't come. Most probably it disappeared. Huh? I have dealt with many things like that. So everything, the thing is, you have to understand that it is the activity of the mind, how the mind is affecting the body. That's the main thing.
In addition to the id,
Huh?
in addition to the id, the ego and the superego, in Buddhism there is a fourth sense, right? What, can you explain that, please? The Freud had id, ego and superego. And in...
But the important thing is to understand what is meant by ego, what is meant by superego. What is it?
Yeah.
Without understanding that, if you just take that word and then imagine that there is a real ego there, then it is all nonsense.
So that's why I'm here. So would you mind? That's why I'm here, to learn from you. So would you mind?
The id represents the emotions. That's the important thing to understand. Id is the emotions. And ego refers to the thinking. The thinking part, which the Buddha called chitta and mano, emotions, the Buddha called Chitta, and the thinking part he called Mano. Now, what Freud called the superego is not another ego. Now, when a mother or father or whoever is looking after the child, small child, now children do all kinds of things which should not be done. So the mother teaches, oh, don't do that, that's not good. Now if the child goes and touches the candle flame or something like that, can burn the fingers, the child doesn't know that. So the mother says, don't do that. So this idea of do's and don'ts get into the mind of the child, you see. And whenever after some time as the child grows up, those ideas of right and wrong, good and bad gets into the mind and it stays in the mind. And that is what you call the conscience. Conscience is that, and this is why when you do something that you have learnt as wrong, you begin to feel guilty about it. I have done something wrong. And so this is why that is the conscience which is also acting unconsciously. You see? It is not happening consciously. You are not even thinking of it consciously. But you begin to feel guilty. Oh, I have done something wrong. You see, like that. That is what is called the superego, that conscience. Because most people are controlled by the conscience. You understand? If you are brought up in childhood, if the parents bring you up in, say, it is not good to steal, you should not steal. So one day you find yourself taking something that doesn't belong to you, then you begin to feel guilty, oh, I have done something wrong. You see, inside, the conscience is always pricking you. You have done something wrong. That is what is called the superego, which the Christians said, that is the promptings of God. So, but the Freud didn't accept that. Freud said it has nothing to do with God here. It is simply your upbringing that produces the conscience.
So is that like sila?
Huh?
Is that sila?
No. That is not sila. But it makes you practice sila. Because the sila, you feel guilty, oh, I have told a lie, and you begin to feel guilty about it. And so, because of that, so you don't tell lies, because you feel guilty when you tell a lie. So like that, so if you are brought up as a child like that, but there are some parents, a child will steal something from somewhere, money or whatever, and come and bring to the mother, and oh, you have stolen something. Ah, very good, this is good. So if the mother treats you like that, when you grow up, you start becoming a rogue. You might become a bank robber or something like that, you see, because you don't feel guilty. That feeling of guilt is not there. So that is what is called Hiri-ottappa. The Buddha called Hiri-ottappa. And that is what in Sinhalese they say Lajja Baya. That is what is called Lajja Baya. And that means shame and fear. Lajja Baya means shame and fear. So this thing called shame and fear is the conscience. That is what the Buddha called here what was the word? The Kamupadana, Dityupadana, Silabbata Upadana. That there the Silabbata really was referring to that same thing, Lajja Baya. That is the Silabbata. You personalize that. This is personalized means you say this is mine. My shame and fear is mine. I feel ashamed of doing this, or I am frightened of doing this. That shame and fear, that is the Silabbata Upadana. And the other one is the Attavada Upadana. Attavada means believing in the self, the idea of self, or the sense of self. So whenever you have a desire, with the desire comes the idea of self. I have this desire. I desire. When you hate something, I hate this. The I is always there. That is the Attavada. So it is that emotion that is ultimately producing that feeling of self. Those are the four things, but Freud didn't look at it that way. Because Freud identified the thinking part as the self. That is why he called it the ego. The thinking part was called the ego. And even the conscience was called the superego. So he couldn't get rid of the idea of self. And then the later Freudians, the followers of Freud, they continued to hold on to the idea of the self. And for them, psychotherapy is they saw it as a feeling of inferiority which was brought by Adler. So the later Freudians began to follow Adler. It was Adler who was also a contemporary of Freud, who was like a student of Freud, but he took a different view that all mental problems are based on the feeling of inferiority. And you begin to feel inferior in comparison to others. You always feel weak. Because, you see, some of these mothers, when they bring up the children, say they bring up a girl and the mother is cooking and the girl comes to cook. Oh, don't, you can't cook, you can't cook. I will do the cooking for you. Or when the girl tries to wash the clothes, oh, no, you can't wash clothes, I will do the washing for you. So if that mother trains that girl in that way, after some time, the girl can't cook, the girl can't wash the clothes, and even say sweeping the floor or something, that is also not allowed. And ultimately that girl, when going out as an adult, all the other people can cook and I can't cook. And all the other people can do all the other things, I can't. I don't know, I am helpless. So you begin to feel inferior to the others. I can't do this, others can do it. So that is that inferiority feeling that comes up. So Adler saw that all these neurosis is the result of this feeling of inferiority. And so their method was to somehow make the person feel not necessarily superior to others, but at least equal to others. So that makes that person sick. That's the real thing. So you have to be careful not to get into that.
Not to be inferior.
Huh?
Not to think you're inferior or superior.
What?
Not to think about inferiority or superiority.
Yeah. Not to think in terms of inferiority or superiority. But if you have not learned to drive a car, and if you don't have a license to drive, you can always learn to drive, and then you'll have the license and you'll be able to drive. So it is a thing like that. If you don't know how to type, then you can learn to type. If you don't know how to play a musical instrument, then you can learn that. There are no people who can't do things. Everyone can do. It's a matter of learning. Now, if you have not learned to write properly with your hand, you can learn to write. If your handwriting is not good, you can learn the handwriting. So everything can be learned. So it's a matter of learning. If you can't do mathematics, you can learn to do mathematics. It's like that. So you should not think that I can't do. Every human being can do something. Of course, a blind person can't see. You can't make that person see unless someone performs an operation or something. But some people cannot be made to see even with an operation. So, but still there are things that you can do. This is why blind people are taught how to walk on the street with a cane or something like that. And There are, in Malaysia, lot of blind people, they are, I don't know, they are kept in a special place and they are taught all these things. And they come to our temple there. A lot of blind people come. And they can do many things that we can't do. Because they have been taught to do various things. So this is very important to understand. That is why there was that man, you may have seen on YouTube, the man without legs and without arms, standing on the table and talking. Have you seen that man? Yeah. So that's very important to understand. It's all in your mind. The wisdom I explained yesterday, you see, the mind was calmed down to the point where the mind disappeared. Because the mind is not an entity, but an activity. And the activity stops. Like the candle flame. The flame is an activity. And when you blow it off means you can't ask the question, where did the flame go? Because the flame was not an entity. It was an activity, and the activity stopped. You understand? Now there is the story, very interesting story that I heard. Is coming from Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People. Huh?
How to influence people and
What?
how to stop worrying and start living?
Yeah, the same man. The important thing is, Henry Ford was the person who started the motor vehicle. Huh? So the Ford company was making cars, and they had the company, what was that called?
Ford, Chevy?
Line. It was assembly line. That's the word I was trying to find. Assembly line. You know what the assembly line is? So there are people in line, and one person is doing only one thing. Say, putting a nail, and he passes on to the next person, and that person will do another thing. See? So like that, it goes on at the end, the whole vehicle is made and finished. So they can produce many vehicles in a few hours. So like that, one man who was working like that, he had learnt everything about making the vehicle, car. So he gets paid, no? So he collected all the money, and ultimately he bought a car from the same company. He bought the car. And he went home. of his home was, of course, lot of neighbors there. He was not a very rich man, and so one house here, another house here, another house here, like that. So in his house, there was this car, the new car that he bought was just there in front of the house. And the neighbors came and looked. Oh, he has bought a new car. Eh? So the neighbors also, they were very happy that he had brought a car. Next morning, the following morning, people came and looked. The car was not there. The car was in pieces. That whole night this man was taking the car into pieces, you see. So morning they saw the car was in pieces. So then, oh, why is he taking the car out like that? So, but anyway, they went and they were also doing jobs. They had to go and do jobs. The following day, the car was back again. He had put all the pieces together and he had made the car. Next day, again the car was in pieces. So these people were thinking, what is this man trying to do? So like that, about a week went, and the car comes back, again in pieces, again the car is there, then again in pieces. They were wondering what this man was doing. And then what he did was, he understood how the car is working, and not only that, he started a new company. That was Chrysler. Have you heard of Chrysler?
Never.
See? So in a similar way, the Buddha, he stopped the mind, started it all over again. Again he stopped the mind, started it again. And by doing that, he began to see how the mind is ultimately creating the whole world. So after he became awakened, there are two verses which today all the monks know about this and they recite this. It's good for you also to learn this. Aneka jati sansarang sanda vissang anibbisang gahakarakang gave santo dukkha jati punappunam. That's the first verse. The second verse is gahakaraka dittosi punagehang nakahasi sabbete pasukha bagga gahakutang visankitang visankara gatan chittang tanhayang kayamajjagati. That first verse was about his experience before he became awakened. The second verse was his experience after he became awakened. But most people, they recite this verse, they don't know the meaning. Aneka jati sansara means infinite number of lives I have been traveling in this samsara, searching for the Creator, but I never met Him. It is very painful to be born again and again. That is the meaning of that. But he was searching for the Creator. Why? In order to stop this process. And that is what today people are all the time thinking about. The Buddhists are mainly, they think, if you want to be a Buddhist, you must believe in karma and rebirth and samsara. If you don't believe in this, you are not a Buddhist, they say. So for them, Buddhism is simply believing in karma and rebirth, and then nirvana for them is to stop rebirth. Did you understand that? But that is not Buddhism. Buddhism is, in the next verse, that this first verse was really talking about what the Indians believed before he became a Buddha. The Indians were thinking in terms of karma, rebirth and samsara. And he was also doing that. Now, in the modern Western religions, they are talking about this God who created the world. They are not trying to oppose what he was doing. But the people in India, they thought if there was a creator who created the world, that creator has created suffering. And so, now today the Christians, they say, they thank God for creating them. But the Indians, they were not thanking God for creating them. Now, now in the second verse, the Buddha says, Gahakaraka dittosi, I have seen you, Creator. You will not create anymore. I have broken all your supports, and the entire structure has been broken down. The mind has stopped creating. That emotional urge has ceased. There the Buddha points out that the Creator was his own mind. So he has seen the Creator. The Creator is not some person outside who created the world. Your own mind is creating the world. Not only the world, that mental process is creating even yourself. That is his awakening from the dream of existence. Because he thought the world exists and I exist in the world. That is not correct. What there is simply that the world is created by this mental process. And that story, the explanation of how that mental process creates the world and how it creates the self is what is called paticca samuppada. So the paticca samuppada is an explanation of how your mind is creating the world. You see, there are two kinds of Buddhism. What is called Sammuti Satya and Paramartha Satya. Sammuti Satya means conventional truth. Paramartha Satya means
Ultimate truth?
ultimate truth, yeah. You can use that word, ultimate truth. Now what that means is, if you think according to the ultimate truth, the conventional truth is false. If you think according to the conventional truth, the ultimate truth is false. That is very important to understand. That is why I said, awakening from the dream of existence. That dream of existence is the conventional truth. Because you are thinking, I exist, the world exists, I am existing in the world. Always thinking in terms of existence. And what is existence? You know this new physics called quantum physics? Have you thought about that? These people, physics is the science that is trying to understand the world. What the world is made of and how the world is behaving. Whatever is happening in the world, to understand how it is happening. You see, there are these two things called chemistry and physics. You know what that is? Chemistry is dealing with matter. There is a thing called matter. Matter means what exists. That which exists is matter. So to speak about matter is to speak about the existence of matter in time and space. It exists in time and space. So we are talking about entities. Entities are the things that exist in time and space. So we are all the time thinking in terms of entities that exist. Right? Physics is dealing with another aspect of this same thing. That aspect is motion, movement, how matter moves. And that motion is due to what is called energy. So physics is mainly dealing with energy. Chemistry is dealing with matter. Physics is dealing with energy. Movement, how matter moves. Now, if this moves from here to here, that is motion. And to study how that moved from here to here. How did it move? Because there was a force acting on that. This was here, there was a force acting on that, and so it moved. This is what Newton was talking about. And energy is that which moves. So like that, you see.
You were mentioning about quantum physics.
What?
You were mentioning about quantum physics.
Yeah. Now when we talk about quantum physics, because these normal physics, they were talking about matter as existing things, existing entities. So they went on breaking matter. They came to the molecule. Then they broke the molecule into atoms. And then they broke the atom also. And the atom became particles. Electrons, protons, neutrons. These are the particles that form the atom. Then they began to realize that these particles begin to behave as if it is not a particle. And they could distinguish between energy and matter. Because the particles began to move like waves. Is it a wave or is it a particle? Now they can't find out what is this. If it is a wave, it is energy. If it is a particle, it is matter. So energy goes in the form of waves. So when light comes from the sun here, one man started saying, light is also coming in the form of particles, not as waves. So what you call the particle which is like a wave, that is what they call a quantum. A quantum means a quantity. So when you speak in terms of quantities, a quantity of energy, a quantity of energy is going. So instead of saying a particle is going, they had to say a quantity of energy is going. That is the quantum, you see. So like that, they began to get confused, and now they are trying to say, they are talking about the subjective experience and the objective experience. Now they are trying to distinguish between the subjective and the objective. So all these become complicated. This is why the quantum physics have become something very difficult to understand. So they call the Newtonian physics classical physics. And the quantum physics is the new physics. Huh? Have you read anything about quantum physics?
They have tried to prove rebirth through quantum physics.
What's that?
Some have tried to prove rebirth through quantum physics.
Deeper?
Rebirth.
Rebirth.
Through quantum physics.
Oh, who did that?
I don't know specifically, but I have read articles.
You know this man who wrote that book I met in Australia. This time when I went to Australia, he was there. He told me, he brought his book also, small booklet. He brought the booklet and gave me the booklet. And he was trying to prove rebirth. I said, I have given up talking about rebirth, because that is a conventional truth and not the ultimate truth. He didn't understand that. He was mainly trying to prove rebirth. And there was no real proof there, although he thought he was claiming to be a great physicist. But I don't think he was such a great physicist.
Was he Sri Lankan?
He was a Sri Lankan man
Granville
who had been teaching in the Sri Lankan university also.
Dr. Nalin de Silva.
Huh? What's that?
Dr. Nalin de Silva.
Maybe Nalinda Silva, yeah.
Granville
Huh?
Dharmaratna.
What?
Granville Dharmaratna. Those are the two prominent Sri Lankans who have written on quantum physics and rebirth.
Nalin de Silva is in Sri Lanka.
Yes, and Granville Dharmaratna is known, he passed
One
away.
of those people, I forget his name, so I met him. But that is a useless thing, because rebirth is also not a truth. So what is the use of proving it? This is why I said all the Buddhists think that the main thing is rebirth. If you are a Buddhist, you have to believe in rebirth. If you don't believe in rebirth, you are not a Buddhist. That is nonsense. But the thing is, if you want to understand Paticcasamuppada properly, you have to read that and learn, here it is, beyond the horizon of time.
Can you explain why Buddhists should not be concerned about rebirth?
Why Buddhists?
Should not be concerned about rebirth.
Vivid karma and samsara, I would say.
The reason is,
That's going to take an eon to explain.
you know, there is a sutra called Sabbasava Sutra. The Sabbasava Sutra in the Majjhima Nikaya.
That's the first one, no?
Not the first one, no. There the Buddha says, the ordinary Putujjana, the person who has not understood the Dhamma, he thinks, did I exist in the past? How did I exist in the past? Will I exist in the future? How will I exist in the future? Am I existing now? How am I existing now? He goes on questioning like this, and ultimately he comes to the conclusion, I exist or I don't exist. And his Sakkaya Ditthi, what I translate as the personality perspective. That means I am a person, I have a personality, I am a self.